Welcome to our sessions on future CX talent strategies. First up, we're talking about the new age of learning with Bhavana Chauhan of LinkedIn. Stick around and enjoy the talk.
One essential cornerstone of an organization is its learning and development strategy. How thorough and relevant the L&D strategy dictates the methods and ways by which an organization will treat customers through the channels supported and manned by its CX advocates. Amid the lingering talent crunch, the shift to hybrid work models, and the compelling need to prepare the workforce of the future, let us all take time today to engage in a timely conversation on the new age of learning. In the role held by our CX expert today as the account director for large enterprise at LinkedIn, she is a trusted advisor for some of the largest clients across Singapore and Malaysia. As a strategic advisor and value creator for her clients, she enjoys her role in helping organizations prepare for the future of work. A believer in lifelong learning, she has built a diverse career trajectory, which spans 20 years across HR consulting, client management, sales, FMCG, not-for-profit, and fundraising and corporate HR roles. Her deep HR experience and expertise across Deloitte Consulting, Mercer, and her various HR roles allows her to bring the business perspective to HR conversations and vice versa in building and creating solutions to address people and talent challenges. Outside of work, she enjoys the joys and challenges of parenting two wonderful children. I am delighted to introduce to you this amazing CX leader joining me in today's talk. Let's all welcome Bhavana Chauhan. Hi, Bhavana. Welcome to our conversation today.
Hi, Dan. Thank you so much.
Well, the pleasure is ours. And I'm really ecstatic about this topic. It's just very close to my heart, and having to have this wonderful experience talking to the best and in the field is truly a wonderful experience. So I do have a series of questions prepared for you today, but before we even dive into it, would like to get to know you. That's all right with you?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, being an executive for a global brand while you raise your two wonderful children, AJ and Annika, what is a typical workday for you?
The cliched answer, there is no typical workday. That said, a good workday typically starts with me getting a chance to drive the kids to school first thing in the morning. I get back home and I try and squeeze in a quick 20 minutes of a meditation to get my intentions set for the day and start the day off on a high note. We then get into the office at LinkedIn, and we're very lucky and privileged to be having breakfast with a lot of our colleagues in the office. We grab some coffee and then we get on to our client calls, whether it's meeting clients face-to-face. Thank God we're back to meeting face-to-face. Or it's getting on the phone and having some client conversations around what the latest trends are, what the business priorities are, and how we can partner closely with them to solve their problems. There's no better way than to hear it from the client directly. So we do spend a fair bit of at least half of the day trying to meet up with our clients. We then get a quick break for lunch. I try and squeeze in a quick 30 minutes. And if I'm lucky, I also get to go to the gym before I head back home. And I end the day always by having dinner with my kids and talking about what did we learn today. So every day dinner conversation is always around what new thing did we learn today. And I also share my learnings every single day. It's a good way to start to think about the growth mindset that we all focus on developing within ourselves. And then if there's a backlog of email, and I just clear my email and get ready for the next day. So that's a little bit of what a good day might look like.
Sounds indeed like a good day. Thank you for sharing with us, Bhavana. It's just really so lovely to get to know our guest, and I know I'm ready now to dive into our topic. So I'm sure you are as well.
Absolutely. It's such an interesting and such a relevant topic right now, with 81% of the executives across the globe talking about hybrid and what it's going to mean. It is absolutely the most relevant topic in the minds and hearts of leaders, I would say.
Yes. Now, we started with your typical workday. So I'm going to really jump in on the very first question. A very relevant topic, if I may say right now, is the remote setup. With some remaining in remote setup, while others have assumed a hybrid working model, what has your observation been among individuals or organizations when it comes to their interest level to learn? What are your thoughts? Has it increased or has it dwindled?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think with the onset of the pandemic, what happened really was we accelerated the pace of change. Everyone was thinking about digital. Everyone was thinking about digital, not only within learning, but even with just how businesses were going to transform. And the pandemic just made all of that get accelerated very quickly, and made it all come alive. So a lot of the research and reports that we've released in the recent times actually all talk about hybrid is here to stay. It's a question of how organizations are going to embrace it and how they're going to make it come alive. And what would that mean from a uncovering hidden talent pools, even as you move forward and create a hybrid workplace. So from my perspective, hybrid as a way of working is going to be the new norm. With that, we will definitely need new skill sets, new capabilities to perform maybe even the same role that we did 3 years ago. How are we going to create organizations that will be ready to pivot and now perform these new roles in this transformed way of working? And that's really meant that everyone is changing the way they're thinking about growing their skills, developing competencies, and just taking the organizations along. Add to that the fact that the great reshuffle is real. 41% of the people in the workforce today are actually looking for their meaning, their purpose. They're asking themselves questions like, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Do I really want to do this? And how do I want to do this? So it's no longer about just the job I perform, but how do I do that job? Or how do I give my 100% both to my job and my family? And that's going to be the new challenge that organizations are faced with. So that's what the great reshuffle is bringing to us right now.
Thank you for sharing that, Bhavana. It's love to hear your perspective on this. And I think a lot of organizations right now are realizing the need to make this necessary changes. And I'm interested, you mentioned something about the skills that organization would need to train their employees on. What skills would companies need to invest through L&D strategy for its employees? Let's dive into that.
Sure. So then I would break this up into two types of skills. The first type of skills that would be required would be the more generic skills and capabilities that everyone will need to invest in. I think of them as the soft skills or the power skills. These will be skills like communication, negotiation skills, presentation skills, leadership skills, manager effectiveness, and kind of tying that back to the hybrid model we spoke about. Mm-hmm. How are we going to make sure our managers are effective and are building that culture that we want to build now that they do not have colleagues sitting all around them? How do we create productivity? How do we create culture? How do we build camaraderie? Those will be all skills that organizations across the globe will have to invest in. I call them skills for skills. Those are your power skills, right? And the second set of skills would be very company specific. They could be specific based on where the organization is transforming with respect to the business priorities, the workforce planning strategy they have in place. So as a workplace transform, let's take an example of an oil and gas industry. They need a certain typical technical skills in the past. Today, they're going to pivot and they're going to go from being in the traditional oil and gas sector to sustainable new energy. What are those technical skills or capabilities? Hydrogen, carbon that they will need in order to be successful in driving new revenue sources. These technical skills will potentially have shorter shelf lives. They probably will stay relevant for anywhere between 5 to 10 years, and then they will become obsolete as well as the world of work continues to change. And therefore, they are slightly less fungible sometimes than the power skills that we spoke about. So the technical skills, very business strategy driven. It depends on whether you're going to build, buy, or borrow capabilities. And therefore, you invest in L&D depending on where you want to build. And the power skills are something that I think every single organization is thinking about and spending time in building today.
I love it. Training is the real way to go about this, making sure that everyone's prepared for the changes. I'd like to ask you, what are the common challenges right now that a lot of organizations are facing? We've been in this pandemic for 2 years now, basing it off from your studies, probably in your reviews. What are those common challenges that a lot of organizations are facing currently?
Yeah, so I think two that come to mind. One, how do we build that culture? How do we make sure we create that engagement and excitement that every single employee out there is wanting to learn and grow and develop themselves? And I think that's where the experience makes such a big difference to them. And the second piece of it is, how do we measure success on learning? How do we make sure that senior leaders are able to see the ROI on the investment that they're making on learning? Those are the two big problems that I see L&D grappling with. And of course, fundamental to all of that is L&D's role within the organizations has changed. We are no longer content curators. We're no longer going to be subject matter experts in every single area that we want to grow and develop our organization in. We are going to be curators of that content. We're going to bring together different content libraries, different thought leaders, different experts from different areas. And that's, again, a very fundamental shift in the way L&D thinks about their role. So those are the big three pillars that I can think of.
I love it. Are there any other trends you're seeing right now that could boost advancements in the new age of learning?
Absolutely. And it goes back to what we said about, the fact that the employee experience and how they embrace learning will be quite pivotal in the way we will shift learning. So if I could borrow a few CX trends, right? Hyper-personalization, the experience, and in this case, the learner experience, and how do we leverage community-based learning? Those three will help us drive innovation, it'll help us drive adoption, it'll help us drive utilization and be able to cater to the needs of the employees. Let me take a quick example. We at LinkedIn Learning, for example, offer personalization through machine learning algorithms and AI. We will surface the content that's most relevant to you based on your role and your profile. So Dan, for you, some of the courses that might come up in would be how to curate the best content for your learning organization. And that way, you will be surface content which is top of mind for you seamlessly in your day of work. So the chances are much greater that one, you will be curious about that course, and two, you will find time then to be able to spend on learning that because it adds value to you. It adds value to your today's way of working and potentially takes you to your next career level. So it's about adding that experience where an employee can say, today I perform role A and I want to go to role B. What are those skills, competencies, and capabilities I need to develop? And they're asking organizations this, how are you going to make that experience beautiful for me and take me from role A to role B? So help me navigate this career trajectory now. And therefore, organizations are using data and they're leveraging platforms like LinkedIn Learning to help curate those content libraries, which can help grow career paths and career trajectories. And the community-based learning happens when something like Netflix, where if I've already watched something, they say, we see you enjoyed X show. Y show seems very similar and it's the #1 trending show in Singapore and you're hooked. And that's exactly what learning aims to, where community-based learning will be about learning from your peers. I see, Dan, you've learned something and I obviously look up to you and I say, if Dan's learning this, maybe I want to spend some time, and I save that course and I come back to it at a time when I'm ready to absorb that content. Similarly, influencers are coming and the conversations that are being had are how do we showcase career path shifts, how people have navigated. For example, I'll take my own example. I have gone from being an FMCG salesperson into not-for-profit and then into consulting. And in the last role that I was holding, I was a certified insurance broker. And then from a certified insurance broker, I moved to a global client manager role. And from there, I moved into a client manager role at LinkedIn. What are those skills, competencies, capabilities that I have navigated myself through in order to be able to navigate from an insurance broker into a client manager? People are curious to understand that. So I get a lot of questions around, how do I navigate this, Bhavana? What did you think about when you thought about going from insurance broking to client management? So that's what the experience is going to look like now.
I love it. Enriching the experience of our learners by tailor fitting the training to their needs and the needs of the role. I love that. A lot about experiences. Is innovations a big part of L&D, especially right now, Bhavana?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll share the LinkedIn perspective. We have 810 million members on our LinkedIn database. The way we are curating learning experiences for all our members, and our vision is to actually create economic opportunity for every single member of the global workplace. And how that vision is coming alive is because we're looking at all the data points from interactions of these 810 million members with the open jobs that are posted on LinkedIn, that interacting with universities, with inputs from governments and from other organizations, and tying that back to the skills taxonomy that sits fundamentally at the data that we collect at LinkedIn.
It's like a cycle.
Absolutely. And that every interaction we have on the platform allows us to understand What are those skill gaps that are needed for the future? And that's when we innovate. So we actually come up with between 50 and 60 new courses every week. And the inputs for some of these courses actually comes from all of these skill gaps that we see emerge on the platform, whether be it from the job and the skill mismatch perspective, or be it from what universities are teaching that's also fed by a lot of the corporates saying this is where we need talent pool. How do we enhance the talent pool there? And innovation, the way we are going to innovate the platform, and I'm very, very excited about some of these new innovations coming, because I know how difficult it is to find time to learn unless
True.
it's a personalized experience. For example, we're going to do role guides. That's going to enable learners to build skills and knowledge banks that they need to advance their specific role within their company. So the company now has a chance to upgrade these and custom build these role guides, which we've curated for themselves. So they make them their own. And yet there is some baseline available for people to say, if I want to do or perform a specific role, what is it that I need in terms of skills and capabilities? Similarly, we'll have skill assessments come. We're going to have so many more innovations coming. I'm just so excited about what the future of learning holds and how it will help upskill the entire workforce to be ready for the future of work.
I am too, and that's impressive, data that you shared, and what I hear actually is diversity. Diversifying the options for learners. Bhavana, in L&D, is the future online? Is it here to stay?
My view, and it might evolve and change as well, just as fast as the L&D world is changing. I think it's going to be the world of hybrid. So a good learning experience now is probably going to be a mix and match of both the face-to-face or online, but in person. And it's going to be infused with learning content, which would be done offline. So I'll give you an example. I was very fortunate to be part of a leadership training course recently. And we would be sent a lot of material or homework to do, could be anywhere between 2 to 3 hours. And I'm mentioning that because L&D always asks, how much is the right balance?
True.
So I get about 2 to 3 hours of work, which was self-learning, self-paced. I could do it at any point. I could be doing it when I'm taking a walk, or I could be doing it when I'm on the treadmill, so on and so forth, and do it over my weekend, for example. And then I would be taken into the classroom experience where I would have a facilitated session. And that facilitated session then became a lot more meaningful and rich because I had the background knowledge and the content, which formed the backbone. And yet there's something about face-to-face interactions which just makes things come alive in a very different way or format. But what's beautiful is now you're able to offer the same experience to someone who's sitting in Singapore, as well as someone who's sitting in Mexico, as well as someone who's sitting in Canada. And that's going to be the hybrid way of working. And then follow that with assessments and evaluations and sharing, etc. And you know that everyone's kind of going along on the same career path, a journey of learning, if I may.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I personally have actually had, that experience, having to have experienced training in the past, and we're still doing the traditional approach and how we glided into the online phase of it. And I must certainly say that there's more that can be done when you do online. But at the same time, there are still things that you can do in class training when it's face to face. So a right balance between the two is the way to go. What advice can you share with our audience on how they can keep the fire burning when it comes to learning?
Yeah, I think I've been very lucky to have had a lot of these conversations and discussions. And my big takeaway in this particular year has been two. One is be intentional. So be intentional about where you want to grow yourself as an individual and where you want to grow your career. Once you have an intent behind it, you will therefore know which direction you want to go. And it's not sometimes just about learning professionally. You could be learning very much in a personal space. I, for example, set myself a new challenge every year. This year's challenge is to learn aerial yoga. So LinkedIn Learning, again, helps to develop that growth mindset around learning. And just does not limit you to professional learning. You could go learn a piano, take a piano course on it, or a photography course. The intent is, as long as you're growing and developing and nurturing yourself, you are developing that growth mindset. So that's intent is very important. And the second, which ties back very closely with the intent, is make sure you find time and curate and carve out time to help you, because the one thing that we all don't have in today's fast-paced world is we have lack of time. So get creative around the way you learn. Are you going to learn on the treadmill? Are you going to learn lying down on your bed? Or are you going to learn when you go for that run? That's really up to you. Are you going to find the courses that your CEO does, and therefore you want to just pick up his or her playlist and just follow that? Those are the ways we're going to find our own shortcuts. But it's so important to continuously upskill ourselves, because at least 25% of the skills that we know today will not exist in the next 5 years. So if we as individuals do not continue to invest in ourselves, we are bound to get obsolete. So that's the fear that I have, and that's what drives me to make sure I'm continuously thinking about what am I going to upskill myself with next.
Oh, I love it. Thank you for sharing that, Bhavana. I have 2 more questions, and I'll be throwing in a question that's not on my script. But before I go there, let me ask you this question. Being a, you know the business, you've seen the data, you have a lot of experiences around this topic. We're talking about learning and development. In today's age, what is L&D for you?
That's a very thought-provoking and a provocative question, Dan. Like I said, I think L&D's role has morphed significantly. L&D is a marketer now. They are marketing the courses, the content that they're curating, and nudgers. They're nudging the people to adopt what they have curated for them in line with the business strategy and the vision. So that's one role that we're going to play. The second role is making sure that the content we're aggregating is relevant. So they are evaluators, they are content strategists. And I feel like the interdependencies of HR are now coming to play much more so than ever before, where L&D has a role to play in workforce planning, where they should have a seat on the table to say, what are those skills and capabilities that we are not going to be buying from outside and we are going to be building within our organization? They have a role to play in saying, where are skill adjacencies? Which roles do we have in our organization today, which we think are going to become obsolete in the future? And how do we help pivot this workforce to be ready, instead of just being able to say, no, we can't work with this entire group of people? How do we help upskill them? How do we take them along into that future of work that we're envisioning today? So very strategic role that L&D has to play, and that's probably why they deserve a seat on the table much more so than they've ever had in the past.
I love it. It's all about collaboration now, making sure that you are proactive, you be involved in identifying the needs. I love that. Thank you for sharing. Now I'm on to my last question, and a question that's not on my script, but if you're going to encapsulate L&D in one word, what would that be for you, Bhavana?
I would say strategic marketeers.
Oh, I love it.
They have to find the right stuff to bring to the table and then market it, because that's the only way we're going to be able to drive the adoption within L&D organizations.
Love it. Love it. Thank you very much for sharing this amazing talk to me and to our audience. And not because I have the same background in learning, but it could not come at a better time, Bhavana, as we strengthen the foundation of the future of work. And that is our employees, that they need support, are expected to deliver impeccable customer experience. And we have, as you said, L&D has a great role in this. So thank you very much for joining us in our conversation, Bhavana.
Thank you for having me, Dan. Really appreciate it.
We enjoyed this conversation, and maybe we'll do this again next time.
Sounds like
hopefully soon. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us in this conversation, and we'll see you again in the next. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us on this session of Transformative CX Talks. We have more discussions from esteemed CX leaders, so make sure to check out all our videos to learn more about the CX industry.